So, as you might remember from last week, the whole story, Gilgamesh, the first really serious piece of writing, was a writing. You know, it probably existed in oral form, but the epic itself says you start by going to the library and, in effect, checking out this book. Go open that box and take out the clay tablets. So, you know, really, this literacy, people recognized early on that this was really something. Reading was really something. So last week, we heard about the great Gilgamesh, fifth king of the 7th dynasty of the rulers of Uruk in ancient Mesopotamia, the largest city in the world at the time. But instead of the real historical king, we met the Gilgamesh of legend, the first international superhero whose story has been written in every language from that part of the world. Who can compare with him in kingliness? Who can say, like Gilgamesh, I am king? Whose name from the day of his birth was called Gilgamesh? The meaning of the word, of the name, by the way, is the kinsman is a hero. Quite a name. 2/3 of him is God. 1/3 of him is human. We also met his sidekick, Enkidu, the wild and hairy man who appears at first as a rival to Gilgamesh, but becomes his dearest friend when the two of them face Humbaba, the great monster who guards the cedar forests of Lebanon from all intruders. Humbaba's roar is a flood, his mouth is fire, and his breath is death. He can hear 100 leagues away any rustling in his forest. Who would go down into his forest? The gods assigned him as a terror to human beings, and whoever goes down into his forest, paralysis will strike. Gilgamesh and Enkidu overcome first that sense of terror, and then the monster himself. But even as they stand by a river, washing off the blood and gore of battle, a new danger appears in seductive form. Looking down from heaven, the goddess Ishtar sees Gilgamesh and falls for him. Head over heels, she purrs, "Come along, Gilgamesh. Be you my husband. To me grant your lusciousness. Be you my husband, and I will be your wife." A goddess making an offer you can't possibly refuse, right? We'll see in a moment, after we visit the heavenly realms of music.
Underneath the bridge, tarp has sprung a leak, and the animals I've trapped have all become my pets, and I'm living off of grass and the drippings from my ceiling. It's okay to eat fish, 'cause they don't have any feelings. Something in the way, something in the way, something in the way, something's in the way. Something in the way. Something in the way. don't have any feelings. Something's in the way. Yeah, something's in the way. Oh, 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 something's in the way.
Very, very nice. Thank you. We've already heard a little bit from Reverend Craig Moro. Reverend Moro is a graduate of the University of Chicago and Starr King School for the Ministry. He's lived and studied in India, Singapore, Thailand, the Netherlands, and Japan. He's served churches in California, Illinois, and the Pacific Northwest, and is a founding member of the Tri-Cities Interfaith Alliance in Washington. He now lives in Portland, where he has recently been named Minister Emeritus after serving Wy'east UU Congregation for 6 years. His sermons are often informed by readings in the original languages of religious texts, including Arabic, Hebrew, and Tamil, and are known for blending scholarship with plain speech and a sense of humor. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Craig Moro.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for that music. Wow. That Kurt Cobain really had a lot going for him, didn't he? It's a lovely song. I never heard it before today. But the music of Ishtar was supposed to be just as seductive. She said, "Come along, Gilgamesh. Be you my husband. To me grant your lusciousness. Be you my husband, and I will be your wife." Ishtar promises to make Gilgamesh king of the kings beyond Uruk, his own city, his own state, to give him fabulous horses and chariots, and to bear him children that will be completely divine. Forget that one-third human stuff. This sounds like an offer that no one could refuse, but that's just what Gilgamesh does. He recites the fates of Ishtar's other lovers and husbands. One had the form of a bird. She broke his wing and left him to mourn over it. One was a shepherd whom she turned into a wolf, chasing his own flocks. Another was a gardener changed into a mole and sent to live underground and eat what he'd planted. Thanks, but no thanks, darling. Ishtar flies into a rage. She's never been refused before. So now she demands that the other gods give her the bull of heaven to send against Gilgamesh and Enkidu. They hesitate, pointing out that Gilgamesh had good reasons to reject her proposal. After all, she has proven to be mighty hard to live with, high maintenance, to say the least. But Ishtar swears that if they refuse, she'll raise the dead. They'll swarm over the human race and devour everything in their path. It's the first zombie apocalypse in recorded media history, and it even scares the gods. They relent and give her the bull of heaven to use as she will. She leads it down to the gates of Uruk, then sets it loose against the city. If you're familiar with monster stories and monster movies, you know that after the first monster, which is usually bad enough, comes the really big one. First, in Beowulf, comes Grendel, then Grendel's mother. First, the little dinosaurs, and then the T-Rex. The struggle with Humbaba was just a warm-up for meeting the really big monster, in this case, the Bull of Heaven. Bull of Heaven, you could probably fit Humbaba in its ear or its nose. It snorts once, and 100 soldiers fall into the pit that opens. It snorts again, 200 die. The third snort opens a crack that swallows Enkidu up to his waist. He grabs the bull by the horns, literally, and calls out to Gilgamesh. Spying a soft spot on the nape of its neck, he tells his buddy to strike with his sword. There! Hit it there! Whack! Thwack! The monster is brought down and its horns are hung on the palace wall of Uruk. How many times have we witnessed this kind of scene in science fiction, fantasy, or other adventure stories? It's a very, very ancient pattern, repeating itself over centuries and millennia. Two buddies overcome their initial rivalry to prevail over challenge after challenge, winning great glory together. But then comes something that can't be overpowered or finessed. Away. Ishtar, angrier than after a heated debate, the majority of gods decide that one of the two must die. Death was always a possibility in the first two battles, but now it becomes something real. Enkidu perceives in a dream that so soon after grabbing the bull's horns, he now has a bull's eye on his back. Soon he falls ill, and a vision of death that also gives us a glimpse of the Sumerian view of the afterlife occurs to him. He sees himself transformed into a bird, drifting down to a house where those who enter do not come out. Along the road of no return, to the house where those who dwell do without light, where dirt is their drink, their food is of clay, where, like a bird, they wear garments of feathers. It's a dim, grim place, not truly dark. Darkness might be a comfort, like a velvet blanket, but instead it's a sort of a half-light, just enough for the dead to perceive their condition and see that it does not change. Like gray, flightless birds, they mostly just sit or stand in silence. Think of pigeons on a wire. On entering the house of dust, everywhere I looked, there were royal crowns gathered in heaps, taken from the bearers of crowns who in the past had ruled the land. These kings and queens are now in service to the lords of the underworld, although there's little for them to actually do. Cities like Uruk, with towns and lands around them, were among the first true states to emerge in human history. The state was an astounding innovation that made things like temples and monuments and libraries possible, and riches, at least for some, that could not have been imagined before. It's no surprise that people began to imagine the gods existing in a state, one that's grander than any state on earth. Nor should it surprise us that they would conceive of death as being a kind of state as well. Such ideas remain with us today. Do you imagine that there is a state of death, something like the state of Uruk or the state of Washington? I wonder. Although it's hard to believe that it will ever happen to me, I am beginning to accept that someday I will die. Sooner or later, dying must happen. But will I then be relocated to some state called death? I myself, or in the form of a flightless bird? Or is death a construct in the imagination of those who remain alive? An empty place felt by those who love me. A place that's now filled with my absence. Is death what others experience on my behalf? Be it construct or concrete reality, Enkidu describes this state to his friend just before he dies. Gilgamesh is undone. He thinks that Enkidu will come back if he weeps long and hard enough. He clings to the dead body for 7 days until it begins to visibly decompose. Only then will he allow it to be buried. He dresses in skins and lets his hair grow long like his friends and weeps bitter tears. But soon the king's thoughts turn back upon himself. Now that he's alone again, just one man without a second, he starts to put 2 and 2 together. I am going to die. Am I not like Enkidu? Deep sadness penetrates my core. I fear death. He must find a way to live forever. But who can tell him how? Well, he's heard of one man, Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim is like the Sumerian Noah, and is probably the source for the Noah of the Bible. He survived a great flood sent by the gods in ages past by building a huge reed boat and stocking it with pairs of every animal species. For that service, he and his wife have been given eternal life. Utnapishtim must be an extraordinary person, possessing great secrets that he might share if only Gilgamesh can find him. He begins an arduous journey that takes him many miles, overland and underground. The darkness underground does not trouble him. It's the half-light in the house of dust that he fears, to spend an eternity aware of himself, but trapped in the state of death, which is not his kingdom, not his state. He encounters a number of persons on his journey, human, demonic, and divine. Everyone has heard of him, even a group of monstrous man-scorpions, which is an image I just love, part human, part scorpion. And he meets a man scorpion and his wife, so it's a couple, a human-scorpion combo couple. And they all ask the same question. If you are Gilgamesh, who destroyed Humbaba, who grappled with the bull that came down from heaven and killed him, why are your cheeks emaciated? Your expression desolate? Why is your heart so wretched and your features so haggard? Why is there such sadness deep within you? Look at you, with your beauty, your power, your fame and fortune, and all that you've accomplished. You're awesome. How can you, of all people, feel such despair? How can you? Kurt Cobain, Sylvia Plath, Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, Ernest Hemingway, and so many others. How many times have we asked this when some famous person crashes and burns, whether they survive it or not? A few years back, during the height of our global economic crisis, a German billionaire threw himself under a train after he had fallen from being the 44th richest man in the world down to number 94. We ask, what do you have to feel so bad about? How many times have we asked this of others, including our not-so-famous friends or our not-so-famous selves? Why such sadness deep within you? How do you answer this question? Gilgamesh answers it with his own question. Why should not my cheeks be emaciated? Should my heart not be wretched, my features not haggard? Should there not be sadness deep within me? My friend, whom I love deeply, who went through every hardship with me, Enkidu, the fate of mankind has overtaken him. My friend, whom I love, has turned to clay. Am I not like him? Will I lie down, never to get up again? Our friends and loved ones stand between us and death. When they are gone, we feel exposed to the fate of humankind, the fate of all living creatures. to lie down at last and not get up again. We who offer support try to fill the empty spaces with our words. Beyond the words, we try to fill them with ourselves. We do the best we can, but it will never be enough. There's a journey to be taken that no one else can take for us. Gilgamesh continues on to the shores of the great sea, where he asks a ferryman to take him in his boat to find Utnapishtim. More struggles and encounters follow that I don't have time for today, but at last Gilgamesh reaches the other side of the water. And there we find that even Utnapishtim has heard of Gilgamesh, and now, like everyone else, asks him why he looks so troubled. Gilgamesh pours out his litany of sadness and loss to the immortal man, expecting that now at last he will get some answers, a solution to his problem. How shall I find the life for which I am searching? Utnapishtim replies, there is no permanence. Do we build a house to stand forever? Do we seal a contract to hold for all time? From the days of old, there is no permanence. No permanence. No guarantees. No warranties for a human being. Gilgamesh complains, I look at you now, Utnapishtim, and your appearance is no different from mine. There's nothing strange in your features. I thought I should find you like a hero prepared for battle, but you lie here taking your ease on your back. How extraordinary that the only man to achieve immortality, the oldest person in the world, he and his wife, turns out to be so ordinary. He has no special powers or ability. He has no edge. Only mortality can give you that. But Utnapishtim just lies back, taking it easy. He seems to have no special wisdom. What does he tell Gilgamesh that anyone here today couldn't? There's no permanence. Nothing lasts forever. Gilgamesh crossed the world and the ocean to hear this? Well, yes, he did. There's something different about hearing it after coming so far, hearing it from the oldest human voice there is, just as it's something special for us to hear it coming from what is perhaps the oldest long story known to humankind. In the long millennia since it was first written down, we've learned a great deal about chemistry, astronomy, electricity, agriculture, disease, and medicine. But about ourselves, our destinies, how to live when we know that someday we all must die. How much more do we really know, even after 5,000 years? Should we just give up trying? Gilgamesh is not quite ready to give up. He asks if there's anything else he might do in order to live forever. And finally, if only to comfort his guest, Utnapishtim says, yes, there's a certain plant. Ooh, a plant, a pill, an herbal supplement, just what we all want to hear. It grows only in the deepest part of the sea and has thorns that will wound your hands, but it will restore a person's lost youth if they can get a hold of it. So at least get another cycle, right? Gilgamesh sets sail with the ferryman, ties stones to the bottoms of his feet, and when they reach the middle of the waters, down he plunges. He sees the plant, grabs it in spite of the pain from the thorns, cuts loose his diving stones, and is washed up on shore. Soon the ferryman joins him, and Gilgamesh says, come on, let's hurry to my city. I'm going to give this stuff to my people so they can all be young again. He even names the plant like the brand name for an herbal remedy. He calls it, the old men are young again. It's good to hear that the king is no longer thinking only of himself. So the journey has not been for nothing. Or has it? On the way to the city, Gilgamesh pauses to wash in a deep pool of clear water, leaving the plant on the side. A serpent that has been sleeping at the bottom sees the plant and snatches it away. Off it goes, slithering through underground channels to return the plant to the ocean floor. I suspect Ishtar's hand in this final cut at the king. Gilgamesh is right back where he started from. He sits down to cry for a while, then asks the ferryman, Ushanabi, if perhaps he has some advice. Ushanabi has little to say. He just stays by his companion's side. Sometimes that may be the best that anyone can do. At last, Gilgamesh sighs and rises and invites Ushanabi to continue with him into the city. When they get there, he says, Ushanabi, go up on the wall of Uruk and walk around. This is exactly how the whole story began. Go up on the wall of Uruk and walk around. Examine its foundation. Inspect its brickwork thoroughly. Is not the inner wall made of kiln-fired brick? And did not the 7 sages themselves lay out its plans? 1/3 city, 1/3 palm gardens, 1/3 lowlands, and the open area of the Ishtar temple, the wall of Uruk encloses. Examine the story of Gilgamesh, who was 2/3 God and 1/3 human when this great tale began, embracing mighty weapons and even meteors, quote, like a lover, superhuman. Now, at the end, he seems altogether human. Up on the wall where the story began, at last, he's part of things, of that great project we call humanity, which now he embraces, if not like a lover, then at least like a true member. He has lost so much on his journey, but what he's gained, he could have found no other way. He has found his way home at last. May we find ours as well.